Welcome back to Ahead of the Chains. We are at that point in the offseason where it's almost too busy. It really
Yep.
does feel like just doing twice a week, even then, we still can't cover everything. I'm starting to think back. How did I used to do once a week on my personal show? That's crazy to me. But now we're in a new era. We have a lot of interesting conversations to have here. We're going to talk a little bit about the Maxx Crosby trade speculation. We want to look a little bit at the 2023 draft class extensions. Guys like Jameer Gibbs, Puka Nakua, JSN, a lot of interesting names there to look at. We're going to try and get ahead of the curve on those conversations.
Mhm.
The franchise tag rumors are heating up. We talked a little bit about them last week, but now we know exactly what's going to happen with three major names there. But before we get into all that, we have a trade to break down here. Jets, Titans, two league bottom feeders making a move there very early in the morning. What was your reaction? I was in the middle of a production meeting for something I do around campus here.
Yeah.
Uh, and my first thought was, damn, I have to alter the rundown.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not gonna
no, that
lie.
was well, at least the news happened this time before we recorded an entire episode and was like ready to post and then, was up in YouTube and whatever. But so the NFL did us a favor this time. But my first thought when I saw that the Titans and Jets made a trade was battle of mid. My second thought was, oh, hey, there's actually some movement going on. Personally, I like this trade for the Titans. Like to me, this trade is I think definitely in their favor. Obviously, Robert Saleh is getting a guy that he coached in New York, a guy that I'm sure he likes. The Titans certainly have a huge need at edge, and I think now this allows them to spend their money elsewhere in free agency, at least to a certain degree. For the Jets, this is a bit interesting to me because I don't know that Tavondre Sweat has been up to par, I guess is what I could say. Maybe a bit underwhelming. Obviously, a lot of people liked him coming out of Texas the same year as Byron Murphy. Like they were like, one of the best defensive tackle interior duos in the entire country. But I think so far in his NFL career, he's underwhelmed. And I understand the Jets have a big need there at defensive tackle after they traded Quinnen Williams. But to me, Patrick, like I like this trade on the Titans end more. Obviously, we can get into in a second like the player breakdowns and who's better. I know Jermaine Johnson hasn't been, Myles Garrett by any means, but I like him as a player, and I think that this is a good value trade for the Titans.
I disagree with your assessment of Tavondre Sweat
Mm,
specifically.
mm.
Since coming into the league, I think he's been really, really damn good.
He's been
I
banged
have
up
been
though a lot. No,
well. That okay, fine. That part is true. When he
and
has played, though, he has consistently been a very high caliber player. So let's look at it from both perspectives because you look at it and you say, yeah, for the Titans, this is a great one. This is a great move. And I see what you like from the Titans perspective. I'm going to break it down a little bit more from the Jets perspective, though. Sweat is I think, when he's on the field, he is a dominant presence out there. He's the type of interior defensive lineman that could chase down outside zone while also stuffing the A gap against inside zone. He's a really, really nice player to have on the interior of your defensive line. You mentioned they lost Quinion Williams. They want Tavondre Sweat to come out there and step up and be kind of that Quinion Williams presence. And I think he can definitely do that. He, when healthy, has been an exceptional interior guy. Now you talk about them losing a edge rusher and Jermaine Johnson. Johnson, very good player. I'm not doubting that at all. But he is on the last year of his deal, right? Tavondre Sweat has 2 more years on his rookie contract. So that is an advantage for the Jets in that sense. And then beyond that, I think the big thing at the number 2 pick, just looking at this draft class, I would rather try and tackle the edge position than the defensive tackle position. I really would. Arvell Reese is a guy I love. I adore Arvell Reese. Yes, I do think that Arvell is that good. I know he's not a full time edge, but neither was Micah Parsons. When he is lined up at the edge rusher position, his film is downright flawless. It really does feel that way. He has dominant play strength, even though he might be a little bit lighter for a full time edge position. He is the strongest player on the field. It feels like consistently. He has the ability to work moves when he needs it. He sets the edge very well, and he could also play linebacker at a high level. I think Arvell Reese being available was a big reason they went ahead and did this, along with the advantage in terms of contract.
Yeah, and we've talked about this the last several weeks how important the interior of your defensive line is, and certainly if Tavondre Sweat is healthy and on the field, you're right. He has been good. I didn't give him his proper props, and I'll also play further devil's advocate by saying the production from Jermaine Johnson in the last couple of years has not been there. Right, I am optimistic, and I'm banking on the 2023 version of Jermaine Johnson to return. 7.5 sacks. That's so far the most productive year of his career. But to me, it goes back to it's harder to get edge rushers than it is interior defensive linemen, which I know you said for the Jets, it's not going to be so difficult to take Arvell Reese, which they're in a rare position where they have, the bell of the ball edge rusher that is in their wheelhouse in the draft. So obviously they won't have troubles. But, for other teams as well, it might be more difficult. I think the other thing is, you're right with the contract, and you're right with the fact that there's 2 years on Tavondre Sweat's deal just compared to 1 on Jermaine Johnson's deal. But I do really appreciate when a coach leaves a place and then trades for his former players. Like, I think that there's always something to be said about the fact that Robert Saleh clearly really likes this guy. I think that he thinks that there is a lot of untapped potential still with Jermaine Johnson, because he spent time with him. He was there for the best year of his career. He was in the building with him. So I tend to trust Robert Saleh and think that he has a vision for what he wants this Titans defense to be. Now, is he going to be their only addition on the defensive line? God, I hope not. Like, that would be a disastrous offseason if he was their only addition. But as a kind of, essentially just a which it is, a 1-for-1 swap, two guys that neither one of them are superstars, neither one of them are bad players.
But they both
I
can
like.
be.
Yes,
They
true,
both can
true,
be. That's the
true.
important part
I
of this.
love Jermaine Johnson coming out of Florida State.
Mhm.
And maybe you could say that I'm guilty of holding on to my pre-draft evals, and maybe I am. But I still think that he could be a really, really good edge rusher in this league. And then you combine that with the other defensive additions they're going to make. He's got Jeffrey Simmons on the inside, so I think for the Titans, building out their defense this way makes sense. But by any means, I don't think that this is a bad trade by the New York Jets. The only thing bad about the Jets right now is that Aaron Glenn has fallen asleep at the combine, evidently. I don't know if you saw that video. Pretty funny. But no, this isn't a bad trade. Like, listen, is this an offseason blockbuster? Whatever? No. But this is the type of trade that is breaking news and honestly could pay significant dividends. Like, we don't think that either one of these teams are going to be playoff teams. But then again, the Patriots won 4 games back-to-back years and they played in the Super Bowl. Why? Because their interior of their defensive line was so damn good. So maybe the Jets are able to, put together a really good defense with Aaron Glenn now that they have a dominant presence on the inside. And maybe the Titans are able to turn things around now that they have Jermaine Johnson on the edge.
It goes a little bit beyond that too, though. It isn't just about this season, right? Even if neither of these teams are the Patriots, these are young players that can be landmark defenders for you. I think that that's very important to keep in mind. They both have sky high potential. It's just about which team can get more out of that particular player. Again, I think for the Jets, the big advantage here is how good of an edge rusher class this is. You are resetting the clock at that position. That's the big advantage here. Jermaine Johnson is looking for that next contract. Meanwhile, you bring in Arvell Reese, or maybe they go Ruben Bain and his T-Rex arms, or they choose to go, hopefully not David Bailey. That would be a horrendous decision if they chose to go that direction. But whatever edge rusher they choose to end up taking, they're resetting the clock in terms of the contract, and that's a very big aspect of this decision for them. That's why I like it from the Jets' perspective. But for the Titans' perspective, there's a lot to like there too. Getting a top-notch edge rusher can be difficult. I'm with you, even though it is a nice draft class at the edge position, and they have a high enough position to potentially get a Ruben Bain.
Yeah.
Again, hopefully not David Bailey.
Maybe this tells you that they're not going edge, though. Like, maybe they
now
wanted
they
to.
don't have to.
Exactly.
Then,
now it's like not a super mega need. It's like a, hey, we still need help, but it's not like our number one start circled underlying need. So,
and I think that's what's nice about it. It frees you up a lot in terms of your draft.
yeah.
And again, like Jermaine Johnson's a good player. Tavondre Sweat is a good player.
Yeah.
Now it's a question of where do they go from here?
Yeah,
Right?
and
These are building blocks, and they're nice building blocks to have on both sides, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
like it a little bit more from the Jets' perspective, personally. I also think there is something to be said for both of these teams. When your defense isn't very good, changes need to be made. And this
yeah,
feels a little bit like change for the sake of change
yeah.
for both of these teams.
I'll say another thing, and Jermaine Johnson currently right now has a $13 million club option. He counts for 13 million also against the cap next year. And if you're the Titans, like who cares? You have 92 million in cap space. Like you've got money to spend. You got money for days. So taking on 13 million, which is this in terms of like contract money, is basically a 1 year $13 million deal. And if you're paying, are you paying $13 million a year for Jermaine Johnson? I would. If I had 92 million to spend, I probably would. So, premium draft capital, premium cap space, taking a flyer on a guy like Jermaine Johnson, I never ever will really disagree with. I think if you're going to bring in talented young players, that's pretty much always the recipe for success. So, I don't hate it.
Yeah, I agree. Now, if we switch directions now to more free agency, right, and players that might have their contracts coming up really soon, we have some more interesting young names, starting with a specific New York Jet. Now changing directions from players getting traded to young players potentially hitting free agency or now being blocked off of it. Another New York Jet, Brees Hall, projected to be franchise tagged, expected to be franchise tagged. Same for George Pickens, same for Kyle Pitts. Let's start by talking about another Jet, though, while we're on this topic. Brees Hall, you said you like the idea of them franchise tagging him. I said I don't really. Give me reasons to be optimistic here.
Well, I think some of the reasons to be optimistic, obviously, if you're the Jets, is you have premium draft capital. Now, do you have a quarterback? I don't know. Are you going to be able to get a quarterback? Probably not. But the Jets have premium draft capital. They also have a ton of cap space. So realistically, this rebuild, if done properly, shouldn't take very long. Now, I know you talked about the fact that you would not want to extend Brees Hall because you said by the time that the Jets are good, by the time the Jets are competent, hey, how much tread is Brees Hall going to have left on the tires? And in certain aspect, I do agree with you because it's the Jets. But in reality, like we've seen a lot of teams get a lot better very quickly. You have to hit some home runs in the draft. You have to make smart free agency signings. They have the ammunition to do so. Now, again, do we trust the New York Jets to do so? I don't know. But they have the opportunity. And the other thing I think is he's been their best player for the last 3 or 4 years. I know you can mention Garrett Wilson. He's obviously been a good player as well. Probably their only other consistently good player during that 3 to 4 year stretch. But what's the harm in franchise? If you're the Jets, what's the harm in franchise tagging Brees Hall? Because now it opens the opportunity to either A, keep him for another year, see what he's able to do, then hopefully maybe work out an extension if you want. Or B, now that the franchise tag's placed on him, you have him under contract for another year. Now you're able to trade him. So all of the best possibilities with the realm of Brees Hall and the Jets involve around him being franchise tag. Again, do they take it and they trade him? Do they do whatever? I think now that they have opened themselves up to a lot of options with Brees Hall. And I'm very curious. I would have been very surprised, very, very surprised if they just let him walk out of the building, sign somewhere in free agency, because you know he would have done that. He would have gone to one of these contending teams that really is in desperate need of a running back. So for the Jets, I mean, there was realistically no positive outcome if they don't franchise tag him, I don't think. Now you've given yourself an opportunity. Additionally, if you are good this year, and there's a chance, right? Or I'm sorry, excuse me. If you aren't good this year, then you could trade him at the deadline. So the value and the resources that you can get back from Brees Hall, I think, all lie with giving him the franchise tag. I'm not surprised that they didn't let him walk out of the building. Although I do feel really, really bad for him.
Yeah, and I mean, you just hit the nail on the head in the specific thing that I want to mention here. Brees Hall doesn't want to be there.
No, he doesn't.
Aaron Glenn is supposed to be all about the culture, the culture, the culture. We don't want hostages, right? Well, you just brought in
You
a
have a
hostage.
hostage.
Like
He's your
right
best
there.
player.
You are holding him hostage with the franchise tag.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he doesn't want to be there.
No.
There's no doubting that. He does not want to be there. He has been very vocal about not wanting to be there. I get it that there isn't really much to lose by having Brees Hall around. You have all the cap space in the world. You have 76 million right now. That's fourth in the league. This franchise tag isn't going to hurt you too much. It's not that expensive to bring in or to franchise tag a running back right now. It's not a hefty cap hit. But again, I think from a culture perspective, I wouldn't really want him around. And I'm hoping for the Jets' sake, they choose to trade him. I do. I think you could get more out of the fourth round pick that you get in return for him than you would from him uselessly being here. But I understand why the coaches might look at it differently, because if the offense is bad again and the Jets lose a lot of games again, well, Aaron Glenn is fired. He's done. He's gone. So you want to keep a guy like Brees Hall around so you could have a good enough team to actually keep your job. I think that's kind of what this comes down to. But again, I don't really like it much. I think a team like this should not be caring much about the running back position. And if you could get anything out of Brees Hall, you should do it. Letting him walk wouldn't be a way to get anything out of him, though. So maybe we do just see a tag and trade. I think that's their best case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this current moment, what would he get you? Like you said, like a fourth round pick. That's probably better for your long term future. Just accumulating as many assets as possible. I mean, they have a boatload of picks. Like if I remember correctly, they have 5 first rounders in the next 2 years. Like they're loaded from trading Sauce Gardner and from trading Quinton Williams. So to just kind of hoard all of these draft picks, and you're gonna hit on some. Even the Jets have to hit on some of these picks. So I agree with you. Tagging him and then trading him is probably their best bet. Another player that we think is going to get the franchise tag. It's been heavily reported that he will get the franchise tag. It is all but confirmed that he will get the franchise tag. Is George Pickens. And now George Pickens is a guy, we spent some time talking about him on our last episode. Again, we recorded it, and then, of course, everything happened the morning before we were about to post it. So thank you, NFL. But George Pickens is a guy who we know the Cowboys want to keep, right? They've talked about the fact that, hey, he's been a phenomenal receiver. They are going to franchise tag him. And we know the Cowboys well enough to know that they are going to probably work out an extension with him before the season. But for now, he's franchise tagged. And I think in a very unsimilar way to what Brees Hall is for the Jets, where he is trade leverage, I think this is just buying the Cowboys time until they are able to ink that long-term deal. Again, there's complications because you're paying Dak Prescott all this money. You just paid Javonte Williams, which isn't a crazy amount. I'll give you that. But CeeDee Lamb is making $34 million a year. Do you also want to now pay George Pickens top of the market-ish money? Is he going to get a bigger contract than CeeDee Lamb? So there's a lot of intricacies to work out with the Cowboys. But I don't know if you agree with me, Patrick. This seems a lot different than Brees Hall, where I think this is just buying time for an extension more than it is possible trade leverage.
The thing about this one that makes it so tough is there are a million different ways it could play out. I could see them tagging him and then he just plays on it. Mm-hmm. I absolutely could. Trying to kind of get ahead of the CeeDee Lamb contract, of the heftier part of the Dak contract. But I could also see that exact thing happening. They tag him and then they extend him.
Yep.
But I could also see them tagging him and then they trade him, because right now you're $26 million over the salary cap.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much better down the line. When will you be able to afford to pay him and CeeDee Lamb and the highest paid quarterback in football and Dak Prescott? You can't. And then you're also going to have to pay offensive linemen too. At a certain point, there's a lot of desserts at the table, and you want to try the chocolate donuts, you want to try the vanilla cake, and you want to try the mint chocolate chip ice cream, and you want to try this and that and that. But at a certain point, you have to say, I don't have enough room for the apple fritter. At a certain point, you have to be able to say that. And I think George Pickens is kind of that point. Yeah, Pickens, he's great. But in order to go ahead and play with him and keep that phenomenal receiver, you might have to move on from a CeeDee Lamb. And in order to eat the apple fritter, you might have to skip out on the vanilla cake. And
the fact that you just compared George Pickens to apple fritter is the worst dessert maybe known to man. So that's I don't know if that's like a New York thing that you just pulled up there, but
no, it was the first dessert to come to my mind. I'll be entirely honest. So what should I go with? Pumpkin pie? Pumpkin pie is elite. I don't care what anyone else has
Pumpkin
to
pie is
say.
elite. I'm trying to think of a dessert that's like really, really good, but kind of always plays second fiddle. So I'm thinking like brownies. Brownies are great, but would you want brownies? Or do you want like fresh
I
baked
think
cookies?
the brownie to George Pickens pro comp is very spot on. I
Yeah,
think there's something about that.
there's nobody better on earth food to NFL player comps than me. That is like a very niche skill that I have. Probably best in the world at a competition that nobody cares about. But your sentiment is correct when you say, hey, we have all of these things on the table. We have to get rid of one of them. Are you trading Dak Prescott? Are you trading CeeDee Lamb? You just signed Javonte Williams, so you're right in the sense of they're going to have to pick. They're already under the cap space. That's before a potential CeeDee Lamb extension, and that's
That's
before
before they even tag Pickens.
they tag Pickens, and that's before they, God forbid, pay anybody on the offensive line or on the defense. So this is a situation, you're right, it's going to be very hard for them to extend Pickens. But, with the cap exploding in a couple of years and adding funny money at the end of the deal, like, could they make it work? Yes, and that would be the most on-brand thing for the Dallas Cowboys for that to come to fruition. But again, we talked about it last episode. I am kind of in favor of tagging Pickens, trading him. I think you could get a second for Pickens. I think the
I
Bills would
think
give you a second. Would they not?
I think you could get a first.
You
I mean, the guy looked like a top 10 receiver last
one
year.
year though. Would you give up a first for a 1 year contract? If it's a trade and extend type of situation where
I got one for you.
the Bills got a
Or no,
contract on the table. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say one, but then I remembered for the first time in a while they have a pretty high draft pick, so I can't say them. I was gonna say the Chiefs.
Yeah,
Would
they're
be
not
a
giving up
very
pick
fun
9 for
Pickens.
Pickens, my man.
Yeah, you're not
What?
giving up pick.
Would they give up pick 40? 2?
Or maybe
41?
New England.
Oh, jeez.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a very hold on. That's a very real
You want to talk
possibility.
about the toxic receiver pipeline going from Stephon Diggs to George Pickens is diabolical.
I mean,
That is quite funny,
Mike
though.
Vrabel has dealt with diva receivers before.
Oh, yeah.
Let's
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
say that. I think that's a very real possibility that I didn't think of until right now. If they were to tag and trade him, I think the Patriots are the first suitor out there. They have the
Yeah.
money. They could definitely do it. I
Yeah, the Patriots
man,
do have money, yeah.
Pickens is a confusing one. You did say something earlier though that the most on-brand thing for the Cowboys would be to what do you say? Extend him?
Extend him
think-
like, dude, didn't they extend? I remember I was at week 1, the Bears in 2024, Caleb's first ever game. And I remember tailgating in the parking lot and seeing the notification that Dak Prescott signed his contract like
Yeah.
3 hours before kickoff. So I wouldn't be surprised if George Pickens is like warming up on the field. His agent hands him his contract. He signs it, and then he goes for $110 week 1 next year. So like I think that it's so on brand for the Cowboys to like sign this guy to a total last minute
After
extension.
Off-season long drama talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Jerry Jones goes on the radio saying, "I hate George Pickens," and then
Yeah.
that ends up happening.
He says like I like Alabama over Georgia just to like rage bait him a little bit. Like he just irks him, and then he's like, "All right, man, all right, here you go. Here's a contract. Here's $35 million a year. Don't tell CD. All right." And so
And then they
it's
suddenly trade
Yeah.
him for
bag
Devonta
of
Smith
chips. Yeah.
because of the Alabama Georgia thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, no, it's Pickens is interesting. The Cowboys
It
are
is.
interesting, but I will say I think anything that involves them keeping him long term is the wrong move.
You're
Because
probably right.
Look at what their
It's
defense
irresponsible.
is.
Yeah, it's
Look
irresponsible.
at what their defense is. You can't field that unit again. I get it that you think Charlie Parker is going to completely revamp the team. And
Yeah.
I also get it that you're paying your DBs a bunch of money just to be terrible.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, you got to look and say, we need to do something on that side of the ball. And yeah, George
Yeah.
Pickens is great, but so are
It's
the Browns.
Cincinnati Bengals paradox. It's like, dude, can
Yes.
we pay everybody on offense and have just the 32nd ranked defense? Like, dude, if the Cowboys defense was average last year, they probably win their division.
Well, here's the difference between them and the Bengals. The Bengals every year are in like the top 5 in cap space, and they just never spend it.
Yeah.
The Cowboys love spending money; they just don't like spending it wisely.
They don't like spending it on non-sexy positions. They'll never pay a defensive
Well,
tackle or like
No,
a
they
left guard.
pay offensive line. No, they paid Osa.
Well, the O
I
lineman
completely
is
disagree.
the movers.
They
man.
paid Oso
They're the
Odigizua.
movers. Yeah, you're right. They did pay O line. I think
Like
my gripe is maybe they don't play
pay
defensive guys. They
They
paid.
pay guys. The issue
To be
is that
fair, they
don't
paid
pay
Trayvon
role
Diggs
guys.
and Bland, and then like they both have just evaporated.
Well, but
in
why
midair.
did you pay them? They weren't good.
Well, I'm telling you, he paid him because those guys were getting interceptions and making big plays and pick sixes, and they make highlights. That's what Jerry Jones liked. So I think it's all about the glitz and the glam with Jerry Jones. It's not about
Well,
the
and maybe that's why they stick with Pickens
yeah.
because
1,500 yards ain't bad, man.
and his highlights are some of the best you'll see. I mean,
Yeah, they are.
real,
Yeah, they're.
real. Let's be real for a second, right? I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I know it's not something that we were prepared to talk about.
It's all right. I got
But
a
if you're
quick
talking
break.
about like the top 5 highlight reels, top 3 highlight reels, probably top 5. Is George Pickens not on there from last year?
Tavon Austin, West Virginia, number 1.
No,
question.
last year.
Oh, last year. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Like
Definitely.
Caleb Williams, I think is right there.
Puka's 1 for sure.
Is he?
Caleb, Puka, Pickens, JSN, just pure volume. I mean, he just had.
No, but volume isn't. I'm not trying to
Well,
watch.
but I'm saying like
I
they're throwing
don't
deep
think
balls a lot.
JSN's up there. I really don't.
Well, they were throwing a lot of deep balls, dude. The one-handed catch in the NFC
They weren't.
Championship game. Are you
Yeah,
joking?
that's a good one. No, that's a
He said
good individual highlight. But I think like Pickens, you see him mossing guys.
Yeah, I
And
mean Pickens is ridiculous. The
JSN
one he had
has,
against
like,
the
some
Panthers
nice
was
grabs, but-
ridiculous.
Oh, it was crazy.
They made up a stat the other day on Twitter, and he's for these nerds out there. They're calling them like hero balls or whatever. I don't know if you saw this tweet. And Pickens was like the leader, and some guy was like, "What the hell is a hero ball?" And a bunch of people were just quote tweeting with his catch against the Panthers, where he just like double coverage, just plucks it out of the air. And I'm like, okay, that's actually a really good descriptor of what a hero ball would be. But no, Pickens certainly is good on highlights. And if you're Jerry Jones, you got to look at his Madden rating. Like the guy has a good Madden rating, so he's got to
We're done
be.
talking about the Jets for today. I thought.
Yeah,
I thought
we're done. Yeah, I guess we're done talking about the Jets.
Yeah.
That is the most unbelievable story I think I've ever heard in my life.
I
I'm
really
sorry.
like to hope that was fake. I really
I,
do.
I totally believe it. Like I totally believe that it was real. Just, I
It's
bet you
bad.
Jerry Jones was like, "Wow, that's really smart. I never even thought of it. Look at that."
So,
Madden. That's pretty good."
If we're talking conspiracy theories, right? Because I guess Woody Johnson being that bad is kind of a conspiracy theory, right? And whether or
Yeah.
not that was real, it's a little bit of conspiracy theory. Where do you stand on the conspiracy that Pitts is locked in to have 6 touchdowns next year? Now that he's
I
supposed to be
think
franchise tagged and remain a Falcon.
if
Like
we're
absolutely
ranking,
locked in.
if we're ranking like conspiracy theories, number 1, moon landing was fake. Number 2, aliens are real. Number 3, Kyle Pitts is going for 6 touchdowns. I think that's the holy trinity of conspiracy theories going on right now.
It's
I
a
totally
lock.
believe it. It's a lock, an absolute lock.
I mean,
Like I think there's a better chance he gets 6 touchdowns next year than the sun comes up tomorrow morning. Although for you, I know it's snowing pretty good over there, so maybe there's not a good.
oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
For
I don't
those
know
of
if
you that might not know, let me explain the theory, right? Kyle Pitts, year 1, 2021, 1 touchdown. 2022, 2 touchdowns. 2023, 3 touchdowns. 2024, 4 touchdowns. Guess how many he got in 2025?
I'm gonna take a wild guess to say he got 5 this past year.
He got 5.
And three of them were against the Buccaneers in my fantasy playoffs. Shout out Kyle Pitts, man. I'll never forget you for that. Got me like 49 points, dude. Shout out Kyle Pitts. Because I remember all year people were like, "Oh, he's going for 5 this year," and then he just like didn't score. And then he just got 3 in one game. It was like, hell
He
yeah,
knew.
Kyle
He
Pitts.
knew it was fantasy playoffs. That's why he stepped up.
He had to get that, yeah.
Now that he remains with the Falcons, I think you lock it in.
Yeah.
I really do. And I mean, listen, he's a year away from being guaranteed a very solid season with Atlanta. So for that reason, maybe you do sign the extension from the franchise tag because if you agree to like a 4-year deal, you're guaranteed to end up getting 9 touchdowns in that 4th year.
He's putting up Rob Gronkowski numbers at the end of that extension. Like this is prime Brady and Gronk type of things. He's about to do.
It just continues to stack. The numbers keep getting added.
He's going to be 40, putting up like 30 touchdowns. It's like, well, that math was horrible. Hold on. I'm not a math major, guys. I'm not a math major.
I honestly didn't notice it.
Yeah.
And then you pointed it out.
Well, because then I was like, then he would have had to be in the league when he was 10. And even though I am the biggest Kyle Pitts fan, I don't think that was possible. But whatever amount of touchdowns he'd have when he's 40. But no, I think Kyle Pitts, we saw the flashes last year. evidenced by the increase in touchdown, numerically one every single year. But we saw the flashes, and the Falcons. The problem is they don't have an answer at quarterback. Like Michael Penix, well, he's the answer, but is he the solution? See what I did there? I just redeemed myself with the math.
That's ball. That's
That
ball
is
right
ball.
there.
That is ball. I'm writing that. Actually, I got to write that down right now so I don't forget.
He's
that.
the answer, but he's no Paul Pierce.
There you go. There you go. But we saw glimpses of the talent that he has. I mentioned the Buccaneers game. He was awesome. There was a lot of other games where he was like, he makes plays, and you're like, oh my God, Kyle Pitts is awesome. The consistency isn't there. You talked about it last week. The blocking certainly isn't there yet. I don't know if
I'm really upset.
Yeah, you really.
That was Allen Iverson. I was thinking of
Man.
Paul
And I was
Pierce
gonna let it slide. I noticed it. I was gonna let it slide.
I had to.
Man.
Yeah,
Man.
Paul Pierce was the truth. Allen Iverson was the answer.
Man, I was gonna let you off on a freebie. Full stop. I was gonna let you off on a freebie.
Yeah, I don't deserve to be let away.
This isn't a basketball podcast, so I figured our audience members were just gonna like tune that out. But I know there's gonna be a lot of them like, what the hell did you just say? But I was trying to throw you a bone. I was like, I'm just gonna roll right past it.
I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. Okay,
yeah.
But
next episode, you're gonna call LeBron James like the Queen or something. It's gonna be like a whole thing, and we're not. That one's not gonna be able to be skipped.
Continue with the Penix.
Yeah. So, anyways, back to Kyle Pitts. Just not putting everything together, but the franchise tag again is a good solution for the Falcons because now you can know after a year, hey, is this guy a fit in Kevin Stefanski's offense? Additionally, another point we talked about last week was Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Michael Penix, and Kyle Pitts. Like, you can't pay all four of those guys. It's kind of like the dessert comparison that we were just talking about with George Pickens. Obviously, a tight end is the lowest on that priority list. So I don't know. Like I think that the franchise tag was probably their only option. It'd be very risky to give him an extension before seeing him in your new coach's offense, who you are tying your future of this core with. But I figured the franchise tag was going to be a solution for them because he is such an intriguing player and he has so much potential, but we just haven't fully realized all of that potential yet.
So there's two ways for me to look at this, right? I already presented the pessimist perspective, how there's not really a role for him, all of that stuff. But then there's the other perspective, the optimistic side of this, which is rare for me to be an optimist. Just let that be known. The Harold Fannin role, where he has the fourth high last year. Harold Fannin in a Kevin Stefanski offense had the fourth highest target rate among tight ends last year as a rookie. Right? And they threw the ball a lot. I mean, there was a lot of volume there, and he had the fourth highest target rate. Again, as a rookie, he only really started to win that role later in the season. Well, if Kyle Pitts can be out there and play in the slot, and they use him as a receiver, not as a tight end, as a wide receiver, and then they get some other tight end to actually play the tight end position, he's the wide receiver 2 on this team pretty easily. And I think that could work well. I have grown on this decision a little bit more than last time we spoke. That's currently where I stand. I think Kyle Pitts is a guy who can absolutely make plays. There is no doubting that. He has playmaking ability as a route runner. He has great hands. He's able to go up and grab the ball. He just can't really play the tight end position. But Drake London as the wide receiver 1, him as kind of the wide receiver 2, playing again the Harold Fannin role, where he isn't even remotely a tight end, and he's really just using all these utility ways. That being the complement, that receiver core, quote unquote, being the complement to a Bijan Robinson run game and a Kevin Stefanski offense, I think there is a way that this all works well. And suddenly I get why they tagged him and why they're probably going to extend him, because he's probably a lot cheaper than paying a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, and we as fans can sit here and be like, "Oh man, I wish this guy was on the open market. I wish this guy was, able to go to XYZ team." But the reality is the franchise tag exists for a reason, and it's because teams are able to utilize a year as like a feeler, right? Do we want to pay this guy a long-term extension? Is this guy part of our plan? Is this guy a fit with our scheme, our coaching staff? And that's kind of the pinnacle example right here with Kyle Pitts. The potential, like we said, through the roof, the the questions are still very evident, though. I do agree that he is going to play more like a Harold Fannin. I think they're going to say, "Hey, dude, you're like a big wide, right? You're like a they
As he
call him,
should be.
yeah, as he should be. Like I don't want to see not even once this next year Kyle Pitts line up at a 3-point stance. Not one
I
time
agree.
do I.
He
Not one
should.
time.
He shouldn't have been.
No, he
He
shouldn't have
should
been.
have never been used as like a real tight end, and
And I
that's been
always say
clear
this:
since like year 2.
if you are going to draft a unicorn player, which he certainly was coming out of the draft. If you're going to draft a unicorn player, you better play to his strengths. You better do the things that he does well. You better maximize that player's skill set. Don't try to fit a square peg into a round hole. Like, don't make this guy who is clearly a phenomenal threat as a receiver into an inline blocking tight end. That's stupid. That's just malpractice. And obviously, Kevin Stefanski hasn't gotten his hands on him yet, but clearly the Falcons like him enough to keep him around for one more year. Speaking of keeping guys around, there's a lot of players here in this 2023 class that are about to get paid. Of course, I am talking about certain players in the 2023 draft class that are going to get extensions. They just completed their 3rd year. They are going into their 4th year. They are now extension eligible. And a lot of these guys are going to reset the market. They are going to quickly become the highest paid player at their position. And in certain cases, some guys might leapfrog other players in this draft class to being the highest paid player at their positions. Certain players that we're talking about, obviously, we've got some of the best players in the NFL. We've got 2 of probably the 4 best receivers in Jackson Smith and Jigba, Offensive Player of the Year and Super Bowl champion. Puka Nacua, who runner-up Offensive Player of the Year, I would imagine, to JSN, obviously. And we have 2 corners who you could also argue are 2 of the top 4 best in the entire NFL. Devin Witherspoon, Christian Gonzalez, 2 running backs who are probably 2 of the 3 best running backs in the NFL, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson. And then we have a guy who is one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, and Will Anderson. I don't think that I fully realized just how stacked this draft class was until we've kind of went through this list and talked about some of these players. I mean, these are some of the best young players in the entire NFL.
You're absolutely right. These are some of the best players at their respective positions. A lot of position battles, right? We have 2 of the best receivers, 2 of the best DBs, right? Let's start by looking at the receiver battle specifically from a contract perspective. JSN, Puka Nacua in the same division, probably the 2 best receivers in football right now. Do we think one of them resets the market? And if so, which one?
Yeah.
Where do you stand on this?
Yeah, I mean, the market is currently topped by Jamar Chase. He's making 40 and a quarter a year. Do I think that JSN and or Puka is going to get 40? I do. I really do think at least one of these guys is going to get 40. Both of them are super young. Both of them have been very productive. JSN, like I said, is coming off an Offensive Player of the Year. I think the biggest or the most interesting part of this dynamic between the 2 is who signs first. Because we all know when it comes to contracts, it's not about being the first one, it's about being the last one. You want to sign the last contract. You want to have that leverage to say, this guy got this amount of money, I want more. So does JSN or Puka take a little bit of a hometown discount, and then the next guy gets a massive deal? I will say, I'm looking at SpotTrack right now. Both of them say about 3 years, $123 million extension for both of these guys. That would be $41 million a year. Again, you have to be a little bit over Jamar Chase, so that would be about $750,000 AAV a year above Jamar. I do think both of these guys get $40 million. You look at the receiver market, you look at the way that these teams are going. The Seahawks especially have a lot of cap room, so I can see this being a situation where they actually front load the money for JSN instead of backloading it like a lot of teams do, take advantage of their cap space before they have to pay a few other guys, right? Like Niki Manwari or a couple of other like young players that they have. Byron Murphy comes to mind as well. So I can see them front loading a deal for JSN where he's making a stupid, ridiculous amount against the cap in the first few years. But JSN, I think, and Puka are going to get $40 million a year plus. And I do agree with SpotTrack where I think one of these guys or both of these guys are going to outpace Jamar in terms of AAV.
And it makes sense. Not to mention, both these teams, they have the money. They have the money to pay their respective players. I think the JSN one is bound to happen.
Yeah.
The Rams one, I could see them choosing to allocate money to different spots, so maybe they wait a little bit longer. I think the JSN one is way more likely to be first. I think the JSN one alone will reset the market, and then Nakua will just slightly outdo him. To me, that's kind of where I stand. Will be very interesting. There is no doubting that these are two players that are phenomenal, two players that are crucial to their team's success, two players that are the best at their position, and they're going to get paid like it.
Yeah, and speaking of superstar Seahawks, I love talking about this topic. It's one of my favorites. They have another position group that is two of the best in the NFL, similar to the Puka and JSN discussion, where it's like who signs first, who is kind of the guy who is ahead of the market. Right now, the corner market is topped by Sauce Gardner, making $30 million per year. We have two guys in Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon, both of which who have been absolute superstars for their respective teams, both of which just played in the Super Bowl. And to me, paying a corner is inherently riskier than paying a receiver, right? The number that's reflective of the market right now. The receiver market's at 40 million, the corner market's at 30. Sauce Gardner, I feel less likely that one of these two guys is gonna get Sauce Gardner money where I do with the receivers feeling more likely than that. I think that this is nothing against Gonzalez or Witherspoon, but if you're, Seattle and you have to prioritize one of these guys, you're prioritizing JSN. Christian Gonzalez for the Patriots is great, but you only have another 2 years of Drake May being super cheap. So maybe that's a situation where, like I said with JSN, they front load the contract, pay him a lot up front. But my question for you, Patrick, is are you comfortable given the way that the corner, the physicality of being the corner, the way that guys can kind of we saw Sauce Gardner last year, tweak his calf, and he was out the whole year. So, are you comfortable, beyond the shadow of a doubt, giving both of these guys 30+ million AAV per season?
Well, I answer your question with another question. Is the Seahawks defense still Super Bowl winning caliber? Is it still that elite defense that you know it to be? The one people say is going to go down in history, whether or not you agree with that is relevant to the point. Is it still that caliber if Devon Witherspoon isn't there? No,
Obviously
it's not.
No.
Are the Patriots in the Super Bowl if Christian Gonzalez isn't there? No. So for that reason, yeah, you got to pay them. You got to pay them. They are too important of pieces. They are the best players on their respective defenses, two defenses that were key to them having the success they did throughout the season. Yeah, you should be a little bit worried about them getting hurt, but that's just the reality of the sport. I mean, really, I don't think corners are much more injury prone than especially like receivers. You think receivers and corners get hurt just about as much?
I would say
I would
corners
say
get
so.
hurt more.
I think it happens more because corners are smaller now. It
Yeah,
really
it's
feels
true.
like
That's
Christian
true.
Gonzalez is not a smaller corner, and Tariq Woolen is, or sorry, not Tariq Woolen. Devon Witherspoon is definitely not
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
smaller
no.
corner.
And
So
he
I think they could take a little bit of a beating.
yeah, and he plays like he's 6'5", 270. Like that's just his
Exactly.
style. But you mentioned Tariq Woolen, and I do think there's an interesting nugget there where, and maybe we can get into this in a separate episode. But like really quick, I don't think the Seahawks are going to be able to re-sign Tariq Woolen. I think that their impending extensions, their impending guys coming up. The market I think is just going to be too robust for a guy like Tariq Woolen to come back. If he takes a hometown discount and he wants to run it back and go win another Super Bowl, then maybe. But if you're losing Tariq Woolen, who, make no bones about it, is a good player. He makes a lot of boneheaded plays, but he is a good player. You're losing a good corner, which is hard to come by. Why not lock up your superstar corner? Just so that position is never kind of a point of contention. It went from a huge strength to now being a major weakness if you let both of those guys slip away. So I think that there is certainly an argument to be made that both of those guys should get extended. Although I do stand by the fact that if I am Seattle, if it's one or the other, I'm picking JSN. But again, with the amount of money they have, and John Schneider's always been a creative guy, I'm sure he can fluctuate the numbers. Maybe he front loads JSN and back loads Spoon, or vice versa, whatever. I think they can certainly make it work to get both of those guys extended in this offseason. It is funny, though, because, everybody, like the talking point after the Super Bowl was like, oh my gosh, the Seahawks are in such a good spot. Like, they're sixth in cap space, which is true. They are in a great spot. But $63 million, that is not even enough to extend Spoon and JSN. Like, you probably need at least 70 to do that. And, we know the cap can be manipulated a little bit, and the cap's going to explode in a couple years. I understand that. But, when you talk about the Seahawks, it's not like they're going to go willy-nilly spending in free agency. Like, this isn't the Titans. This isn't,
But they don't
the
need to.
Raiders. They don't need
They
to.
don't need
Exactly
to.
is my point. When that's what you want. You want to spend your money on superstar homegrown players, which is exactly what the Seahawks have. You don't want to go and overpay guys in free agency that are filling a desperate need for you. So this is the ideal way to spend money. But my point is that like Seattle is not this team that's just like so flush with cash. Like they're going to spend it on their own guys. Speaking of spending it on their own guys, another couple of players that are at the top of their positions who are going to be in a financial battle. Their agents are going to be in a financial battle with the other. That's Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. And I'll start with you on this one because as the president of the Don't Pay Running Backs fan club, I think you finally met your match in Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson, two guys that have been phenomenal. You're shaking your head, and I'm just going to give you the floor because I don't even want to get in the way. This is like watching Picasso paint. So I'm gonna cut to you, and I'm just gonna let you rant for like 10 minutes.
It's very simple here, in my opinion. What have the Falcons won recently? Like, honestly, what have they won recently? Do you think? Yes, Bijan, great player, phenomenal player. Like, I am not gonna sit here and say Bijan is some bad player because he's not. He's spectacular. But unless you're able to get a 2-year deal, maybe 3-year deal, I'm not paying him league-changing money. I'm not paying him $21 million a year. I'm not paying him $22 million a year. Even 3 years, I would be a little bit cautious of that, and I have to make sure I have some escape doors built into that contract. Because if not, right, well, you talked about, our corner's too injury-prone. I strongly disagree. Corners are too injury-prone. But running backs are too injury-prone. That's the reality. They are. And when you're a team that has the flaws that the Falcons have, you don't have the quarterback situation figured out. There's weaknesses in certain spots of that roster. There's better ways to spend $20 million. Saquon Barkley is making $20 million. He is the creme de la creme of the running back market right now. And I don't think paying Bijan a 2-year $40 million, 2-year $42 million contract would be bad. I think when we start talking 3 years, $63 million is when it becomes an issue. Because if Bijan gets injured, derailed. And now you're paying him all that money for the work that a backup running back could do perfectly fine, right? And I get it, injuries, you don't want to bank on injuries, but that's the reality of the running back position. It really is. And when you're a team like this with this many weaknesses, a bad contract, specifically at the running back position, can derail you, right? A bad contract could derail you in ways that the benefits don't quite make up for. Because Bijan has been a very good running back. There's no doubting them. Did the Falcons win many games because of Bijan Robinson? It felt like yeah, Bijan's a great player. He helped them lose. He made them look better when they lost in some of those games. They still lost a lot of games. Bijan is not single-handedly going to win you football games. He's not. And when he does, it's because the offensive line's very good. Bijan's, of course, a very good player, and he's able to make some of those 5-yard carries into 20-yard carries, and that's awesome, and that's great. But unless you're a team that has all these great team-friendly deals, I don't love paying a running back. I really don't. And Jahmyr Gibbs, I think it's especially something that you should avoid because look at what that defense is right now. You pay Jahmyr Gibbs $21 million a year on a 3-year deal, you're going to regret it. You're going to regret it severely because that defense is very bad and you do not have the cap space. You do not. So, listen, they're not going to take my advice. We already know Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get paid running back market changing money. That's what all the rumors are saying, and I think they're going to regret that. And Bijan, I think he is a very good football player. I'm not saying that he isn't. Him, I could get behind it a little bit more if they choose to pay him because you're not paying a quarterback right now. The Lions are. But still, if it starts getting into the 3-year, even 4-year contract range, I think these are going to be deals that they regret a few years down the line.
Yeah, that was prime Bob Ross. That did not disappoint at all. But I will say, I actually think there's more of an argument to pay Jahmyr Gibbs than there is to pay Bijan Robinson. I actually agree with your point that, in spite of Bijan Robinson's brilliance, it really hasn't netted a lot of victories for the Falcons. We know that to be true. They have had a lot of problems elsewhere on the team, and him being the supernova that he is hasn't really changed that. What I would argue with Jahmyr Gibbs is that the Lions potentially have 2 years left with this, Super Bowl window, if you can call it that. Um, before I think they're in some real cap trouble. Jahmyr Gibbs clearly gives them the best opportunity to win. Now, this is the Lions team with a solid infrastructure. They've got the quarterback, kind of, right? Kind of. Like, they kind of have the quarterback. They've got good receivers. They've got who they're paying. They have I'd say getting weaker by the minute, but they have at its core a good offensive line, especially with Taylor Decker coming back. This is a Lions team that is significantly worse without Jahmyr Gibbs. And if they're trying to capitalize on their core, if they're trying to make the most out of it and get the most success they can with this group of guys, it has to involve Jahmyr Gibbs. It has to. So I understand that you don't want to be handicapped by a bad running back contract. By the way, I will mention you were pretty close with your evaluations of the deals according to Spot Track. Bijan is projected a 3-year, $57 million deal, which would be 19. Ironically, they project him to get lower than Saquon Barkley, which I don't know that I agree with. However, Jahmyr Gibbs is projected a 3-year, $61 million extension, which, if math serves me right, which it doesn't always, that would still be slightly below Saquon Barkley. In fairness, Saquon Barkley did have a 2,000-yard season, won the Super Bowl, and won Offensive Player of the Year. Which
Then what do you do a year later when the offensive line started to lose players?
And that's kind of your golden point, I think, is where running back requires so many components to
it does.
Like not to make an Incredibles reference, but it's all like a clock. All the parts have to mesh together, right? You need a good play caller. You need a good offensive line. You need to stay healthy, right? You need to be versatile. So
listen,
there's a lot
I'm not gonna sit here and say they should regret signing Saquon because they won a Super Bowl out of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
But that's the luxury. A running back, paying a running back that type of money is a luxury you get when your entire defense is on rookie deals, like that Eagles defense was. Right?
Yeah.
That's the luxury there. The Falcons kind of have it. Like, I could see the Falcons going with a 2-year deal for Bijan. I think that would be fine because they're not paying Michael Penix right now.
Right.
But the Lions are paying Jared Goff. Their defense is not good. Like, you're talking about the Lions like, oh, yeah, the Super Bowl window's still open. They're the third best team in their division. And honestly, call this crazy, right? But I think if we're talking about, oh, this team is just a few pieces away, I don't think there's a single team I look more at than the Vikings, who, let's say, a surprise quarterback becomes available on the market and the Vikings get him. They're better than Detroit.
So you're saying if the Vikings trade for Geno Smith, they're winning the Super Bowl? Is that the word?
If the Vikings trade for Joe Burrow, they're winning the Super Bowl. That's
if I go on a date with Selena Gomez, you know what I'm saying? But no, I agree with you, and that's just always the conundrum, when it comes to paying running backs, because I believe prior to Saquon Barkley last year, the last running back to take up like more than 2% of his team's cap was Marshawn Lynch with the Legion of Boom Seahawks. Well, the Legion of Boom Seahawks had Sherman and Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas and all Byron Maxwell, all of these guys before they got paid. So they were running out one of the greatest defenses of all time, paying him, $15 an hour, and they could pay Marshawn Lynch a big deal to be their bell cow running back. Most teams, like I said, don't have that luxury. No. Hello.
Yeah.
We almost avoided that this time.
Normally, make the beef.
Let me stop the timer. Where are we on the timer? See, now I have my notes open on like a different window. It's ugly. Not ideal.
Hey, give me 1 second. I think it's my battery. Hold on.
You're good. Listen, I can't be mad at you for having technological issues because
no, it's not my battery. That's great.
I had to have an entire background change. Now people are going to be saying I'm a Giants fan, which is going to piss me off.
Here, I'll start again. But again, paying a running back is difficult. I will say if two guys deserve it, it is these two guys. But, from a team building perspective, we've seen a lot of running back deals derail teams for a while. I think of the Zeke deal in Dallas. I think of the Todd Gurley deal. I think, there's a plethora of other deals you can argue. The Leonard Fournette deal in Jacksonville. There's a lot of examples of this, and there are few examples of a running back extension or big contract really paying dividends. Fortunately for these two guys, one of the most recent examples of that is Saquon Barkley, who obviously was a huge addition. But honestly, call me crazy. That Eagles team was so stacked, they might have won the Super Bowl without him. Like, that's just the reality.
I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong at all.
Yeah,
I think the only game where that becomes a little bit of an issue was the Rams game. The only one where I'm like, do they still win it without him? Probably those Rams games or the first Rams game.
I mean, they crushed the Packers. The Rams game was close. They crushed the Commanders, and then they crushed the Chiefs. So, do they really need Saquon for any of those games?
At the same time, though, I get it from a you got to please the fans perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why I say the Falcons, sure, pay Bijan. Detroit is where I don't think they should.
Interesting. I think there's a better argument for Detroit just because they are closer to being a Super Bowl team.
Like you say that, but no, they're not. Like,
well, they've been to the NFC Championship game in the last 3 years. The Falcons haven't done shit.
But because there's not as much to lose.
I mean, I don't know. I think the Lions
because
are certainly
further
closer.
away. They could afford to overpay a player just to keep the fans happy. Right. Meanwhile, the Lions, this is the type of thing that makes sure your window closes. You don't have their defense isn't good. It's not a good defensive unit. And they're losing more guys. The offensive line is getting worse. Yeah. They don't know what the deal is with their coordinators. The Lions are so far off. To pay a running back like Jahmyr Gibbs, dare I say it's a desperation play.
Yeah. I think that we're going to spin our wheels a little bit with the running backs because, there is so much, I think, negativity when it comes to running backs, and some rightfully so, obviously. I think a guy that there is next to zero negativity on, I think we're both going to be in unanimous agreement here, Will Anderson, 24-year-old, the former member of the Alabama Crimson Tide, who I've loved ever since he was there. He, in case you guys don't watch football, he's pretty good. Like, he's pretty good. He's all right. For whatever it's worth, PFF had him as the number 1 grade edge defender over a guy who had 23 sacks and broke the sack record. Over a guy who broke the sack record. But that's nothing against Will Anderson. I'm not throwing.
That's more against PFF, which is now a product of someone else. I don't know why someone bought it. No, PFF is a nice tool. I'll be honest. PFF grades suck.
PFF grades are the problem.
Tool. Yeah, PFF as a tool, though, is really nice. I'm not going to lie.
Yes, their analytics are actually really good a lot of the time. But getting back to Will Anderson, he is another one of these guys from this 2023 draft class. I still can't believe that the Texans pulled off that trade to get him. I thought that was one of the most masterful trades ever conjured up. They got what is, I think, the next best thing to a Myles Garrett, which is one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, point blank, period. This guy is a monster. SpotTrack projects him to get at least $45 million a year. Now, what's interesting is that Micah Parsons is currently making $46.5 million AAV. He signed that huge deal with Green Bay. Will Anderson, they say that he's going to get less annual average than Micah Parsons. Would you be comfortable getting him a deal that is worth more than the Micah Parsons deal in Green Bay? After giving up, obviously, 2 first-rounders and what the Packers did. So they were kind of, their hands were kind of tied there. Do you think that Will Anderson, without the trade leverage and all of that, is worth a deal bigger than Micah Parsons?
Do I want to? No, obviously not. But am I comfortable with it? Yeah. I mean, here's the reality, right? We're looking at a D'Amico Ryans defense that, in terms of X's and O's, they don't reinvent the wheel. They run split field coverages. All the time. It's match quarters. It's cover 6. Like, that is their defense. And it pre-snap, right? You're only seeing 4 guys rush. You're not seeing some crazy disguised blitzes. You're not seeing sim pressures. None of that. It is just 4-man rush, quarters behind it. That is all they do. And when you are that simplistic, you mentioned the Legion of Boom earlier. I'm going to mention them again. When you're that simplistic in terms of X's and O's, you have to just be better. When you're not beating a team on the whiteboard, you have to just have better players. Will Anderson is a better player. if you want someone that could just beat all the offensive tackles in the league, Will Anderson's the type of guy you got to keep around. I am completely behind paying him $47 million a year. I am. Now, again, do I think he'll get that? I do think it'll be 45. That's probably the number I'll look at. You got to keep in mind they did pay Danielle Hunter $35 million as an aging edge rusher, and he has of course rewarded them for that. But when you keep in mind how much Danielle Hunter got paid after some mediocre seasons in Minnesota, in all honesty, it's easy to say, yeah, they're going to break the bank for Will Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, they're the only team that you could feel comfortable paying $80 million for two edge rushers. Like, that is a huge portion of your cap that you would be giving to just two defenders. But at the end of the day, you have to say, like, yeah, they're probably both worth it. You know, maybe Danielle Hunter, you could argue because he's older. But, I mean, Will Anderson is just a phenomenal player. But I want to transition to another phenomenal edge rusher in our league and what the future might hold for him. Maxx Crosby of the Las Vegas Raiders. Much is being said right now about his future. Will he get traded? Who will he get traded to? And will new Raiders head coach Clint Kubiak want to start new by trading him? There are a lot of questions with Maxx Crosby right now. Obviously, you know, you can tune into his podcast. He just recently did an episode with Caleb Williams. Hint, is that, you know, potential, you know, is that, and they call it in show business the foreshadowing. I don't know. But we're here to talk about the rumors regarding him and to create some rumors of our own. But Patrick, I'll start with you. How real do you think the rumors are? You know, you have people, credentialed media members from major networks saying, yes, Maxx Crosby is gone. He has played his last snap as a Raider. He is no longer going to be in Las Vegas. How much credence do you put into those rumors?
The issue is that we see rumors like this about a star player every offseason. Sometimes there is smoke and fire. Sometimes it's all just smoke. Like I think back to Tyreek Hill getting traded to Miami, right? That was real. That was a real one. But then the amount of time, like remember the Lamar rumors when his contract ran out? Remember that entire thing, and they franchise tagged him and then extended him. And it was like, oh yeah, he was actually going to be gone. Like, no. And it happens every year. It happens every year. But the journalist in me, the optimism in me, the desire for chaos across the NFL in me says, yeah, man, let's have it happen. Let's have it happen. But I'm not going to lie, the realist in me struggles to get too hype about stuff like this. It really does, because I feel like then you get your hopes up and then it feels like everything is kind of just gonna, whatever. Yeah, Trey Hendrickson just, you know, got signed to a $40 million deal with the Ravens, whatever. Like, no, that's not how it should be. But if I'm going into this not expecting Maxx Crosby to randomly get traded, then I'm happy with even a David Ojabo reinventing the market, or not reinventing the market. Odafe Owe getting a crazy deal or something like that. You know, all of a sudden that's crazy to me. So I like to enter these with low expectations. As to how real it is quite difficult for me to tell, but I do think there is a little bit of fire here. I do.
I would kind of side with you. I would put it at a coin flip right now. I'd say 50-50. If he gets traded, I won't be surprised the fact that he's traded. I think maybe we'll be surprised by the team. Some team may come out of the woodworks and offer up a ridiculous amount. But if you tell me, hey, Maxx Crosby got traded, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. If you tell me, hey, new coach, the Raiders think they can be somewhat competitive, they kept Maxx Crosby, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. Worth pointing out before we get into some of our superlatives of potential teams that Maxx Crosby could go to, I want to read you his cap hits for the following year. Mind you, coming into the 2025 season, he will be 28 years old. These are the following cap hits: $38 million, $35 million, $29 million. There is a potential out in 2028 for zero dead cap, which is actually really nice. $27 million in 2028, $28 million in 2029. He hits free agency at the age of 33 in 2030. So I think it's time to get into what you guys really want to see. You know, we sat here and we're like,
contract.
What?
Really quick. Let me just speak on that contract.
Yeah.
That might be the best bang for your buck in the edge rusher
That's
market
not bad.
right
I
now.
was gonna say there's not a
It's
year where it's just a
great.
casualty. Yeah.
Well, in the modern, and that's the thing, when you get ahead of the 8 ball on a contract, the rewards are there because now we have a guy
Yep.
like TJ Watt getting paid $40 million.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
so yeah, a deal like that, I feel like everyone should be interested in trying to bring in someone like
Would
that.
you rather have Myles Garrett at 46 million or 45 million, whatever it is, or Maxx Crosby at 36? I'd probably have Maxx Crosby at 36.
Well, if you said anyone but Myles Garrett, I would agree with you.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I think
It's kinda
Myles
hard.
Garrett might just be
It's
one
kinda
of them
hard.
ones.
Yeah, he is one of them ones, unfortunately. The Browns would take the greatest pass rusher of our generation. Like, that's just so sad. But he had his chance to get out. He got his bag, whatever. So now we have some potential landing spots for Maxx Crosby. I want to start with you, Patrick. Who is the most likely team, in your opinion, to trade for Maxx Crosby?
Well, I mean, you mentioned the Caleb Williams connection. I'm gonna give you.
There we go.
Yeah, I know that you like to hear that one.
I do.
The Chicago Bears. Like, let's
Yeah.
be real here. They need a guy like him. They do. And I do understand, like, there's other positions that they want to pay. But right now, the quarterback is young. He's on that rookie deal. They're trying to free up space. You heard about the Tremaine Edmonds thing. I think now is as good of a time as ever to bring in a star edge rusher because they haven't been able to do it through the draft. They've really been bad at it. Remember last time the Chicago Bears made a move to bring in an edge rusher from the Raiders?
I do believe he is a guy by the name of Khalil Mack who
Yeah.
was phenomenal for the Bears. I do
Yeah, it
recall
went
that.
pretty well, right?
Yeah, I did.
So imagine that, but instead of Mitch Trubisky on the offense with you, you got Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson instead of Matt Nagy. I'd feel a lot better about that if I'm being entirely honest here. So, yeah, I mean, let history repeat itself. Embrace it. Let's do it. I think that is I would say, the most likely scenario.
I absolutely love the fact that you brought up the Chicago Bears. But Bears are negative $9 million in cap space right now. I don't know.
They're working.
They're working, and we've heard rumors that Edmonds is on the block, and DJ Moore is on the block, and Edwards is on the block, and
and why do you think that is? Why do you think we're hearing those rumors?
They're probably trying to clear the books right now. They're probably trying to clear the books
because they heard Mad Max is available.
I agree.
Let's go ahead and do it.
And they sent Caleb on a little spy mission on his podcast because that's the way the modern NFL works right now. If you're not going on a guy's podcast, you're not really recruiting.
You're doing it wrong.
Okay,
This
you're
was
doing it wrong.
This was why Belichick had to leave. He wasn't into the new meta.
Dude, no, he couldn't tap in. He was stuck with the old game. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, he confused podcasts with 25-year-old girlfriends, so it's all just messed up right now. But, sorry. Such a stray.
That's a stretch.
Such a stray of Bill Belichick. But no, the Bears, from a need standpoint, from a push all your chips in the table, you're absolutely right. Hey, we have Caleb Williams, and we're paying him nothing for the next couple of years. Push everything. That's the move they did with Mitch Trubisky, which was great. Only problem is they did it with Mitch Trubisky. So
and Matt Nagy.
The move, I tell everybody, the move in a vacuum was phenomenal for the Bears. They got great production from Khalil Mack. They just weren't right on where they were as a team. They just didn't have what it took to kind of go that extra mile. When I look at a team that could trade for Maxx Crosby, I do want a team that is in a good cap situation. So that's my only gripe with your Bears pick. And we do this every single episode, and I know it seems like I'm a fan of this team, and you could tell by my shirt I'm clearly not. But I think the Commanders make a ton of sense. They've got elite capital. They've got 67. You can make that joke in the comments. They've got $67 million worth of cap space right now. They have a defensive coach in Dan Quinn. I really do think that they are a team with the ammunition to go get a guy like Maxx Crosby. Clearly, the Bears and pretty much every other team in the NFL has the desire to get Maxx Crosby. I'm more so looking at the teams with the ammunition. Now, if you're looking at Washington, again, that's kind of the same logic as the Bears, where it's we believe in our quarterback 100%. Jaden Daniels was phenomenal in his rookie year. Obviously, was banged up last year. But if we believe in Jaden Daniels so much to the point that we think that we are going to be contenders during his rookie contract. Why not push all the chips on the table? Why not go out and get a guy like Maxx Crosby? I think the belief in their quarterback is very similar to the Bears. I don't know if they're as good as the Bears with the rest of the roster, but I do think that this is a move that you could see as, hey, this is the Commanders acknowledging that last year was a fluke. They are a good team. They have a great quarterback, and they're going to make some moves here to really put themselves in a good spot.
Yeah. Okay. Now, as for the most fun, which of these do you look at and be like, that'll be the most entertaining one? I personally look at Baltimore. I do.
Yeah.
I think if Baltimore were to bring him in, he's that piece of the defense that they've been looking for, the star in the defensive front, on the defensive line. They haven't had the outstanding, unbelievable member of the defensive front. I mean, unless you want to count the 1 year of Madubuike being the guy, they haven't really
Shout
had
out Mike
that
McDonald.
since.
Yep.
Yeah, they haven't really had that since Terrell Suggs.
No.
It doesn't really feel like they have. Bringing in a guy like Maxx Crosby, then you have Roquan Smith on the second level. You have Kyle Hamilton in the third.
Mm-hmm.
You feel really good about that. I think that'll be a very fun scenario.
Yeah, that's a good stack
With
for a
Minter.
first-year head coach and Jesse Minter. That's all right. That's pretty good. I think the Baltimore Ravens would be super fun. I mean, again, there's this. It seems like the AFC has maybe diffused a little bit in the last year and a half or so, with the Chiefs not making the playoffs last year, the Bengals not making the playoffs, the Ravens not making the playoffs, the Bills only winning one playoff game. The AFC is seemingly wide open, and a guy like Maxx Crosby would turn the tide of that conference significantly. So you're absolutely right. Like, if the Ravens get Maxx Crosby, if Maxx Crosby's a Raven tomorrow, I'm saying, hey, I think the Ravens can go to the Super Bowl. Rookie coach and all, rookie OC and all. Like, I do think that makes them the premier contender in the AFC. But I'm actually going to echo something that you just talked about when I talk about most fun teams. I think the most fun team would be the Chicago Bears. I do believe that the Chicago Bears would have been in an absolute dogfight with Seattle in the NFC Championship game had they had Maxx Crosby last year. Because this was a team that had absolutely zero pass rush. They could not get to the quarterback to save their life. And if you need any evidence of that, go back and watch the 49ers game. Brock Purdy looked like prime Joe Montana. It was ridiculous. He was like Dougie in on dudes. Andrew Billings was chasing him down after 8 seconds, and then he was Dougieing in the end zone. It was embarrassing. They had no pass rush, right? Part of that is, I think, some bad moves and some bad money management by Ryan Poles. The other part of it, dude, they were just decimated by injuries. Shamar Turner got hurt. Dio Dengbo got hurt. Dexter got hurt for a little bit. Like, they were just completely decimated on the defensive line. Now, going into this next year, you look at the Bears and you say, they don't have money. They don't have a premium pick. That's how you would get a edge rusher to solve that problem. Well, what if I interest you in a guy like Maxx Crosby? Again, I mentioned my gripe with the money. That's still evident. But we're ignoring money for right now. We're just talking about most fun. What would be great for the league? Maxx Crosby in Chicago, eating Portillo's, getting some deep dish pizza with the boys after the game would turn the Chicago Bears, you could argue, into the NFC favorite going into next year. I do feel that strongly about the impact that a guy like Maxx Crosby could have on a team like the Bears, who's so desperate for defense. Next, I have another fun team, but I'll let you go first with this one. We're going to talk about the rich getting richer. What rich team already would get even richer by trading for a guy like Maxx Crosby? And I really hope we don't have the same team here, because I am really excited to talk about my team.
Well, is your team's ninth in cap space and has $44 million?
My team is not ninth in cap space, but my team might play in the same division as the team with ninth in cap space.
Oh, you're going to say Seattle?
What team is richer right now than Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, the issue there is, like you said, the extensions and everything. So they probably have to let some
money
guys
doesn't
go.
exist in this.
But let's say that they chose to go all in. You're right. Mm-hmm. Seattle would be cool. But if the Rams were maybe trying to look at this route of, remember them picks? Remember that movement?
Yep.
What if they went with a little bit of that and a little bit of, we have a good edge rusher in Jared Verse. We'll put him on one side. And then, we have some other nice pieces on our defensive line. Byron Young's great.
Yep.
Let's trade him as part of the package and then replace him with Maxx Crosby, because why not?
Yeah.
No. It's not needed. They don't need it.
No.
Like, there's other areas of the defense they need to upgrade.
Corner.
Edge rusher is not one of them.
Yep.
But they could get better in theory if they chose to do this. And I wouldn't be I wouldn't be completely and utterly like that's unrealistic.
Yeah.
In honesty,
That is a very like less need move to, you're right. Say, first off, F them picks. Second off, say, all right, Seattle just won the Super Bowl. F them, and go out and get a guy like Maxx Crosby. My first thought is if the Rams do get Maxx Crosby, certainly they are the NFC favorite. My second thought is the 49ers better pray to God that Trent Williams comes back, or else they are doomed. They are straight up
that
doomed.
becomes an interesting story.
Yeah, that becomes an interesting topic. But going back to Seattle for a second, just in terms of the rich getting richer. A team not only that is rich because they won the Super Bowl, not only is rich because they have the best defensive play caller in the NFL in Mike McDonald, but the defensive line for Seattle was so deep. They were deeper than they were, I think, spectacular, right? This is a defensive line that had 5 B to B plus edge rushers, no A's, I wouldn't say, but 5 B to B plus guys. And this is a team that if you add a superstar like Maxx Crosby, oh my gosh, teams couldn't even move the ball against Derek Hall and Boye Mafe. What are they going to do against Maxx Crosby? So it is kind of mind blowing to think about that. Now I want to get into what would be the dumbest trade. What could the Raiders do that would be a pinnacle Raider move? Just be dumb, be stupid. What would be the dumbest team that could trade for Maxx Crosby in your opinion?
Arizona. I mean, very, very simply, Arizona. Because, like, the Jets, they're not even going to think about it. Like, the teams that are obviously rebuilding aren't going to think about it. But Arizona, I feel like if LaFleur is going into this job thinking, oh, yeah, I need to compete instantly, I could see a desperation play bringing in Maxx Crosby.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be what they do. They should be trying to play the long game here, waiting a little bit, and then over time, maybe Stafford ages out, maybe the Seattle regresses a little bit, the 49ers, their windows close, and then all of a sudden, these draft picks that you might potentially use to trade for Maxx Crosby matter a lot, right? These first rounders will allow you to really take advantage when the other teams in the West fall off. But if they choose to trade them for Maxx Crosby, they're screwed. They won't have those draft picks. They're just going to be going all in just to be fourth in the division. So I think, without a doubt, Arizona is the team I look at.
Yeah, we took different routes. I agree with you, by the way. I think it would be really stupid for Arizona to trade from. But we took slightly different routes. I think the dumbest team that could trade for Maxx Crosby would be the Houston Texans. Like, how much of a good thing could you possibly have? I mean, that is kind of just like a 12-year-old playing Madden to have Will Anderson
maybe
and
Danielle
Hunter.
Hunter's involved, and that's why.
I mean, I wasn't thinking that Danielle Hunter would be involved because – I mean, if you're the Raiders, why would you?
If you're the Raiders, why would you do it?
Yeah, why would you do that? So, like, to me, it would be like the Texans are just trying to stack Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, Maxx Crosby. I don't know that Danielle Hunter would be a prized asset for the Raiders. They're not going to get older at the end. So, and that just more goes to poor allocation of resources. Would it be freaking awesome to have 3 edge rushers like those guys on one team? Yes. Is that just so incomprehensibly stupid to allocate like $120 million to 3 edge rushers? Yeah, so I think that would be the dumbest. Moving on now to the biggest game changer, the one that would turn the tide of the NFL the most, the one that would instantly, I think, make this team elite. I went with the Buffalo Bills. Similar to your reasoning with the Baltimore Ravens, where they instantly become the belle of the ball in the AFC. I think very similarly about the Buffalo Bills. I'd say that their edge rushers right now are unspectacular. If you add a superstar to that defense, which it seems at times that they really need a supercharge in their pass rush, they really need help on their pass defense. If you add a guy like that, I mean, if you think about it from just a logical standpoint, the Bills play with so many leads and they score so many points. Teams a lot of times are in passing mode against the Bills. If you have a guy like Maxx Crosby, who's going to be able to pin his ears back and get after the quarterback, I mean, he might set his own personal record for stat. He might have 24 sacks. Myles Garrett's record might only last a year. I think instantly the Buffalo Bills become the Super Bowl favorite with Maxx Crosby. Again, very similar to your logic with the Baltimore Ravens. I feel the same way with the Buffalo Bills. If they get Maxx Crosby, Josh Allen's going to be wearing a ring along with his 2018 draft mate, Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I went with Dallas. I think Dallas
Ooh.
would upgrade severely by making
Ooh.
this move here.
I like Dallas.
Issue is cap,
Yeah.
without a doubt. It's cap
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
But again, what's nice about a trade is that, in theory, this is a hypothetical thing. In theory, is CD Lamb involved in this? Is
Ooh.
is
Extend
that the type of
Pickens,
situation
trade CD to the Raiders.
exactly? Like, is
Ooh.
that what we're looking at here? Maybe.
Ooh.
I don't know. Like, it's ideas to float around, at least. If
Jerry
any
Jones,
team were
pick
to
up the
make a
phone.
trade like that, yeah, if any team were looking around and saying, "Yeah, I don't want to do picks. I want to give away a player."
That's
actually.
really interesting, actually. That's really interesting.
It would be the Dallas Cowboys. Now, again, likelihood of this, I wouldn't say it's overly likely.
No.
But if they find a way to pull this off, ooh, hell of an upgrade. Hell of an upgrade. It's exactly what they need.
And that would be a win-win, because what would you want if you're the Raiders? You want weapons for your young quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, coming in. You can deal the lose. So my question then would become, it's Maxx Crosby, CeeDee Lamb, and what? A third?
I don't like, maybe we're looking at just straight. Really? I think it is
for Maxx Crosby. That would be kind of ridiculous, in the sense of just so wildly, like, so wild. A player of Maxx Crosby's caliber getting traded for one player, like, that's a deal we've not seen in the NFL. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, 1-for-1. I mean, we saw 1-for-1 Jermaine Johnson for Tavante.
I mean, 1-for-1 superstar x superstar is what I mean. Yeah. I was gonna say, like, Sam Bradford was traded for Nick Foles. That was two superstars, obviously. I remember, but
no, like, again, likelihood of this, not really. But if the Cowboys could pull off a way to get Maxx Crosby, they instantly upgrade severely as a football team. There's no doubting that. But before we wrap this show up, I do want to switch gears to the Anthony Richardson trade rumors.
Yes.
We know how his situation went. Just really quick before we wrap this up, he requested a trade. He's going to be out of there, assuming someone wants him. If not, I could see him in the UFL. Where do you think, landing spot wise? I know that you're an AR guy.
I am.
Which you're crazy because he can't stay healthy.
I have his name and number tattooed on my chest. I'm just not going to rip off my shirt right now. The team that sticks out to me instantaneously is the Miami Dolphins. You
think he goes somewhere where he's guaranteed to be the starter?
I think if you're the Dolphins, what do you have to lose? Like, what do you have to lose if you're getting rid of Tua? I think that a team, especially a new coach, would look at any possibility to try to scrape the barrel and find some bargain. And Anthony Richardson has the opportunity to be a huge bargain right now. He's a guy, obviously it hasn't worked out in the NFL. He's been inconsistent. He's been inaccurate. He's been subbing himself out of games. But this is a guy that was the 4th overall pick a few years ago. And guys like that always get second opportunities. And I'm not even gonna, be his biggest supporter right here. I'm simply saying guys like that in the NFL always get second opportunities. If you're a Jeff Hafley and you're, done with Tua, why not trade a 4th for Anthony Richardson? Just see if you can get anything out of him. So I think he goes to a team.
I don't
Miami.
think he can go somewhere where he's guaranteed to start. I really don't.
Well, no, I mean, maybe you bring in a veteran quarterback, a cheaper
Kirk
veteran
Cousins
quarterback.
And him?
Yeah, and you have those guys duke it out.
I think that's fine. Now I'm going to present my interesting situation here. Completely different mentality, or actually very similar towards the end, but they already have the veteran.
Yeah.
Give me the Rams. Rams make a move for AR. Let him develop. At least see if you have something, and then if you don't, no harm, no foul.
My personal
just a year
hell.
On the bench.
My personal hell.
Maybe.
Is Stafford plays another year, is good, whatever. And then they trade for AR, like you said, and then AR becomes a superstar for the Rams. That would put me... And the Seahawks just won the Super Bowl. That would put me in a bad mood for the rest of my life. I'll be 70 talking to my grandchildren about how I always believed in AR, and then the Rams took him, and he was phenomenal. I do think that there is also an argument to be made that not that he necessarily has a choice, but he should go down the Daniel Jones route where he says, I'm not good enough yet. or the Sam Darnold route, whatever you want to say. I'm not good enough yet. I want to go to a team with a really good offensive mind. I want to sit for a year. I want to learn. Then I'm going to hit free agency and hopefully be better. Obviously the Rams would fit that in spades. I also think there's a world where the 49ers trade Mac Jones and are looking for a backup. Maybe he goes, clearly Kyle Shanahan liked that prototype. He traded 3 first-rounders for Trey Lance. Also didn't work out. But I don't think that Anthony Richardson would be guaranteed anything. I think his best bet is to go to a spot where he's competing with a veteran bridge-type quarterback to see, what he can showcase. And then obviously hit free agency in a year. But that is all the time we have for today. I know we had to be quick talking about my sweet prince, Anthony Richardson, future NFL Hall of Famer. That kind of wraps up.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah,
That's
that wraps up our episode. I'm going to click end of the stream before Patrick reach through the screen and actually kills me for my AR love. But thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.